morning, and welcome to the Mental Breakdown Morning Show. I'm Dr. Bernie Wilkinson.
I'm Dr. Richard Marshall.
And we have a great topic for you guys today on this wonderful Thursday, October 13th.
That's right.
And it's not Halloween.
We're counting down the days, however.
That's right. But it feels like Halloween sometimes, and especially based upon the topic we're going to talk about today.
It's scary. It's a scary time.
It is. We are going to talk today a little bit about staying psychologically stable or staying sane during the holiday
season. That's right.
/ election season.
One of the major candidates, one of the two, Donald Trump was in Lakeland yesterday.
Yeah,
he happened to be here. He's in Florida.
You know, my wife was on her way back from Tampa, and she goes, "I don't know what's going on.
Right.
All of these exits on the little toll road that we take to get down here to South Lakeland, they're all backed up and everything." I said, "Well, I think that Trump was supposed to be in this area, but I thought it was Tampa. I thought it was some of the big cities. But sure enough, he came to
he was in Ocala the day before, and then he was in Lakeland. Then he was going on down to Palm Beach, where he has a home. But yes, he was in Lakeland yesterday. Stopped at the airport, quick stop, did an 1 hour rally, and this, of course, produced a flurry of Facebook emails, texts, Twitters, because he was here. Okay,
right.
so people, there was this flurry of activity,
right?
And I thought, and in that flurry of activity, there's a lot of anger, a lot of anger, a lot of angst, and people are really going after each other this election season. And you and I have said many times, we're not going to weigh into this political, political mess,
right?
But
because the flurry of anger is going both ways, towards Donald Trump and towards Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, it's going both ways.
And
so let's take a look at it with a different lens,
right?
And so this article, so we've been looking around at what other people are saying rather than what's typically presented in the major networks and in the media, and found this article. And we thought, well, this is an interesting perspective on this contentious election season. So we thought we'd talk about that this morning.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along a little bit with our show from Monday, which was fear versus respect. That there's a lot of catastrophizing. Right. Is that a word?
Catastrophizing is a word.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that going on, and we as the populace, as the people who are going to be voting and stuff, we really have to kind of weigh that and work to keep our emotions and our sanity in check, so that we don't kind of get pulled into any of the rhetoric on either side and start making decisions that aren't fully informed.
That's right, because your vote, anybody's vote, should it's obviously going to have some emotional overtones.
Sure.
But it should also be a rational decision. It should be about policy. It should be about the person's past, what we're likely to experience in the future, and that takes rational decision making.
Right.
And when we get into an election season, by nature, they become very emotional.
Absolutely.
For those of you who have been through a couple of presidential elections, it doesn't matter who the candidates are; they become highly emotional time periods. And so, as citizens who are going to be voting, or more, just as important as our vote, the messages that we're passing on to our children during this season, we want to remove the emotional tone as much as possible out of this.
Right.
I hate Donald Trump. I hate Hillary Clinton. Or all these strongly worded emotional statements really have no place here.
Yeah, I saw a funny video on YouTube, or not. I don't know if it was on YouTube or Facebook yesterday. That was from the debate between Ronald Reagan and Mondale. Was it Mondale?
Well,
the moderator said, Mr. Reagan, you are the oldest president, and there are those who say that you've kind of lost your speed a little bit, you've lost this, you've lost that because of your age. How do you feel you will be at having to handle? And Reagan had a great response, and he said, referred to the moderator by his name. He said, "I'm not going to be pulled in and insult my opponent by highlighting his youth and inexperience."
Right.
And I thought, that was a classy way to respond to something that could have been in today's climate a very
offensive
and confrontational situation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was it was funny.
Right.
Because when I don't remember that debate at all.
I was going to say you don't remember that debate because of infantile amnesia.
Right. Yes.
Anything younger than 3 you don't remember.
I think I was older than 3.
But yes, you're right. It's a humorous way of reducing the tension.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And for all the reasons that we know, this has become a highly emotional, highly contentious electoral season.
Right.
And we, as individuals, we need to be careful. We need to be careful about what it does to us, how we're feeling, and what we're saying.
Right. So a couple of days ago, an article was published at Psychology Today, and I'll provide the link in the show notes, on how to stay mentally strong during election season.
Right.
Don't let political disagreements weigh you down.
Yeah, because and this is from a book. And this isn't from a book, but the article was written by the author of a book, and the title of the book is 13 Things Strong People Don't Do.
Right.
Okay? And so this book is available. We have no investment,
no connection
to the book, but it's 13 things
mentally strong
people don't do. And
Amy Morin.
Amy Morin is the author's name. And what she did is she said this is a way to remain emotionally strong in this election season.
Right.
Okay. So 5 tips, 5 things that you can do to remain mentally strong during this election season.
And I think that the first one is one of my favorites.
What is it?
Save your breath.
Oh, yes. Right.
It is so true that sometimes we just want to be heard, and we think that we're going to sway someone or convince someone, or that we're in some way going to have an impact on somebody who has opposing views. And more often than not, it again becomes emotionally charged, it becomes emotionally laden, and it doesn't really get anywhere. Because as soon as we experience some type of confrontation like that, we tend to dig our heels in as opposed to remaining, flexible and say, well, let me see what I can think about that.
Right. What we're seeing now is that it doesn't matter what either candidate does.
Right.
From this point on, you're really not going to change anybody's mind. I mean, they're trying to do that. We have all these sex scandals now.
Right.
It's not going to change any voters' minds.
Right.
Okay. There's no new information about Benghazi that's going to change anybody's mind about Hillary Clinton. Everybody is sort of cast. I received an email. Yes, I got an email yesterday from a relative, from a relative of mine, who is obviously going to vote differently than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to respond to him, but I thought, wait a minute. Nothing I say is going to change his mind. And what's going to happen is I'm going to sit here and spend 20 or 30 minutes composing a very carefully worded email.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to get upset while I'm composing it, and then I'm going to send it and probably upset him as his email upset. Save your breath.
Right.
I'm not going to change his mind. He's not going to change because of anything I say.
Right.
So save your breath. Save your house.
Yourself. I think it's interesting. Just sort of to reiterate your point about most of us already know the way that we're going to vote. When all this the sex scandal stuff and everything came out about Donald Trump, about what he has said and the locker room talk, as he put it, you would think that there would be people who would be offended by that and begin to struggle with that, but instead a lot of things that I saw on my Facebook was I do too.
We do too. That's right.
Yeah, he's one of us, and
he's one of the guys.
And you think that again is just an example that people who feel and are going to vote a particular way, they've already made their decision, and so you're not going to convince them otherwise.
Right.
Unless, I think that the only exception to that is if they approach you and say, I'm really struggling with making this decision between the two. What do you think? Or,
right.
You have some experience in this area. Can you tell me a little bit more about, which of these policies may be better? Now, that's a different situation, but that's a conversation as opposed to trying to convince someone of something.
Yeah, my daughter has done that. I have a daughter who's a senior in college, and she will occasionally write to me, has written to me during this season and said, hey, I heard this about Hillary Clinton. What can you tell me? Or I heard this about Donald Trump. What can you tell me about that? She was obviously looking for information.
Right.
Very different. It's
right.
Very different.
Number 2 is set healthy boundaries. Now, we always talk about boundaries, but the line says you don't have to listen to other people air their political opinions, especially if the climate is aggressive or hostile.
Exactly.
So, just like you want to save your breath, the other side of that is if somebody's approaching you with that and you sense the hostility and you sense the confrontation, set those healthy boundaries and say, you know what, I really don't want to talk about that right now.
We were at an event recently, and that exact thing happened. And I've learned long ago you don't argue about this stuff.
Right.
So this guy came up to our table and he began talking. We weren't talking about it. He came up and brought the subject up and began to proselytize, advocate for his candidate. And I simply excused myself quietly, didn't offend him politely, in any way.
Right.
But that was he was talking to people at the table. I didn't want to be part of the conversation. I certainly didn't want to start an argument. So I simply excused myself and went and went somewhere else for a few minutes and then came back.
Yeah.
So set your boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3 is think realistically about the future. And I think that goes along with what we were talking about on Monday, that, it is very easy to, predict the doom and gloom and the horrific nature of things if this person were to be elected or that person were to be elected. And
somebody should do a word count and see how many times the name Hitler has come up in this election. Every day say, it's going to be the country's going to come apart, we're going to fall apart, we're going to be another Hitler, whichever one gets elected. I don't know how that works. But.
It's of course, the way that our system is set up is that whomever is elected president certainly has a lot of authority, a lot of power, and all that kind of stuff. But they certainly don't have. It's not a monarchy. They don't have final say on everything. And so while they will certainly guide and sort of lead the discussion in particular directions, perhaps all of their policies, as we've seen, for all the years that we've been a country, the person sitting in that seat does not make every decision absolutely.
No, they can't. Almost no decisions are made by a single individual. One of the things that you learn over time, our Constitution is incredibly flexible, but it moves slowly. Right. Okay, a person can't. You just simply can't do that much in 4 years. Right. And number 2, last 2 weeks ago, we had President Obama veto a decision about whether we could sue Saudi Arabia for 9/11. And the Congress overrode his veto. Right. Okay? So we really do have a check and balance system in our country. Yeah. And even with the Supreme Court, yes, it might be a little more conservative or a little more liberal, but in the last 30 or 40 years, the decisions have been fairly consistent. There have only been a couple that haven't been consistent. And whether we have a liberal court or a conservative court, most of the amendments stay, most of the decisions stay. Right. Roe versus Wade stays through liberal courts and conservative courts. Right. Okay, so government moves rather slowly, and the election of one individual isn't going to bring down the country. Right. That's just fear-mongering that has no place in a rational decision.
Right. Now, I think number 4 is my other favorite.
What's that?
I have multiple favorites, and that is limit your media consumption. I've been
maybe that's my favorite.
I've been very vocal in many forms. I don't watch the news at all. No. I don't. Though I write for the newspaper. Somebody joked with me and teased me about it one time. I write for the paper, but I don't read the paper. I don't. I don't even read my column. Hopefully, whatever turns out okay.
I don't even read that. But well, we read it here. So.
But we don't. I have found for me, it is just healthier for me to collect information from sources that I know are sound and balanced, mm-hmm. and I can't weigh myself down with information from so many other sources.
No, you just have to stay calm, right. Because things come up in the news, and time after time we see retractions, or we say, well, that's not exactly what happened, or that person didn't really say that, or it was taken out of context. So we have to be very careful.
Well, and if you look at the stations that are supposed to be news stations, like Fox News and MSNBC and some of those, they certainly have a leaning in one direction or other, right. and to assume that they, as they proclaim, are fair and balanced, I think is a little bit naive, right. Because it can't be fair and balanced, but yet consistently be against the other side.
Right.
If it's fair, if MSNBC is fair and balanced, they can't be that consistently liberal.
Right.
And the same with right. Fox as it relates to more conservative. Right. It just doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. That there's times when, for all of us, we agree with one side with some policies, and then we agree with the other side for other policies. And right. I think limiting your media consumption, I think, is critical.
We just had a hurricane come through. Mm-hmm. I understand we have another one on its way.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole.
I don't watch the news.
I have no idea. You wouldn't know this.
I'll wait until I see that there's no water left in Publix, and then I'll say, oh, there must be a hurricane coming.
No bread, no water, so it must be a hurricane. No, we just had a hurricane. Matthew came through. In fact, some states are still dealing with the after effects of Matthew,
especially Georgia.
So, right, and North Carolina, their rivers are flooded, and so our neighbors to the north are still struggling with it. And during the hurricane, more and more people said that I don't want to watch the news anymore, because you begin to think that, remember the one you quoted last week about you're going to die and your children are going to die. Okay. Yeah, if you watch the news for 24 hours, you would become an emotional train wreck.
It's so sensationalized.
Because it's sensationalized. They want viewers. Yeah. Okay. Yes, they're presenting information, but they also want viewers. Right. And the more sensationalistic it is, the more viewers they're going to get. Whether it's true or not is almost secondary. Yeah. They're in the business of getting viewers. And so when you watch, so I think number 4 is good. Reduce your consumption of media during the election season, because it is going to make you crazy. There's just too much of it. Right. There was a time when we used to watch the news at 6 or 7. You don't remember those days, do you?
Yeah.
You do?
I heard about them.
You heard about in a history book. Mm-hmm. Your grandparents told you about
American history.
Right. No, there was a time when we had 3 stations and you watched the news for a half hour a day. Well, now you can watch the news 24 hours a day. They have to fill that up with something. They have to keep you watching, and so the more sensationalistic it is, the more likely you are to stay in your seat.
Absolutely.
So be careful of all that consumption. It's not good for you.
Right. And the last one, number 5, is to view the election season as an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Here she talks about, we tend to see the election as just a time where it really drains our emotions and our mental strength. And instead, we should flip that. We always like the idea of flipping those negative experiences around to find the positive part, and think of it as an exercise to strengthen your mental and emotional skills. Finding ways to get stronger and to become more informed and to understand things a little bit better, and to say, well, I heard her say this, or I heard him say that. Let me learn more about that.
That's right. And if you have children, use it as an opportunity to teach them about how government works. Teach them about emotions. Teach them about anger. Teach them about forgiveness. This is a wonderful opportunity to teach your children valuable life lessons. It comes around every 4 years, but there's a lot of stuff we can do to teach our children. Don't politicize them. Don't just give your political and passionate political views to them, but rather teach them about the political system that they're going to be participating in. Right.
And when they hear something from one of the candidates that they find offensive or bothers them or something, talk to them about it.
Yeah, they say, Mom, I heard this, I heard that, or they come up from school and say, well, they'll mention the candidate's name and say, so-and-so did this. And you say, well, let's sit down and talk about that. So it's a wonderful teaching opportunity for parents.
Right. You know, I think that what we were talking about earlier with the checks and balances, I think is a perfect example where you can, you know, they hear a candidate say, well, this person is going, you know, the other candidate is going to do this or going to do that. And you can say, well, remember, this is how remember seventh grade civics. This is how the system works. And, you know, this person does this, but this group of people make this decision and that decision.
Yeah, he said he's going to go in and bomb, you know, children to come home. Sometimes they're afraid. So he said he's going to bomb them. No, he can't make that decision.
Right.
Congress is going to have to weigh in on that decision. Right. Or, you know, so this is a wonderful time to teach them about the three branches of government and the checks and balance system.
Absolutely. So again, these five ways to stay sane during the election season, I think are really, really good and just something to hold fast to. We've only got a couple more weeks left.
Right.
We'll then deal with the aftermath, whatever that may be.
We'll deal with that when it happens.
The apocalypse that happens after...
the apocalypse that probably won't happen. Right. So,
well, if you listen to the news... It
will happen.
It's going to happen.
To you and to your children.
That's right. The United States will end as we know it.
Right. That's right. The end of our system.
We will start having the Hunger Games
We've survived far more than this in the past 270 years.
Absolutely. Like so stay strong, stay positive, stay happy, and just keep moving forward. That's all we can do, really. Right. So, all right. Again, weather is great outside. Get outside and walk.
Yeah, it is nice.
And if you're going to talk about these things with your kids, go for a walk while you're talking about it. It's great.
Who told
especially
me?
In the evenings.
Some listener was chiding me about being cold at 85. Who was that? What was her name?
From Noreen.
Noreen.
From northern New Jersey, I think.
It's a little less hot today. How's that? How are we doing? Okay, a little less hot. But thank you for that good-natured ribbing from New Jersey.
That's right. So, all right. Well, we will be back tomorrow with another discussion about. Well, tomorrow is Friday, so we're going to get ready for the weekend.
Right.
Another big weekend coming up. So, have a great evening. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
All right.